Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, a website designer and business coach for entrepreneurs and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a successful business and stand out in a crowd, you're in the right place. After creating a multiple six-figure-a-year website design business in my 20s, I'm ready to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, branding, website design, mindset, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. All right, friends, this is going to be a fun episode. So I'm chatting with one of the amazing founding members of my Booked Out Designer course, Katie Taylor. Katie's a Showit website designer and marketing analyst who works with local businesses in Cincinnati, Ohio. And guys, you are going to love hearing her business story. I think it's going to inspire you. I think it'll feel super relatable. I know I could relate to so much that she shared. And we're also going to be talking about the Booked Out Designer course. So to give you a little backstory before we play this episode, Katie officially started her business in September 2019. And it looked so much different than it does now, which I can relate to. I'm sure you can, all those quick pivots that happened early on in our business. And then the winter of 2021, she was thinking about throwing in the towel in her business and then found Booked Out Designer 24 hours before the doors opened and then joined really quickly in that 2-hour span before it sold out as a founding member. And I'm so glad she joined. The results she's seen since being in the course have been amazing. So to give you a little bit of highlights from this conversation, you're going to hear Katie's story of starting her business after working for years as a nonprofit event planner. Then that stuff about her thinking about quitting, how she overcame different things she struggled with imposter syndrome from being a self-taught website designer, which guys, if you are self-taught in what you do as a business owner, then you need to hear what Katie has to say about this. Again, I think it's super inspiring. And then you're going to hear about how Katie made her projects go faster by implementing all the strategies and structure and back-end things for your business in Booked Out Designer. And then Katie's story of booking a $6,000 website project that's just a website while in the Booked Out Designer course. And you're also going to get to hear so much about what the community of Booked Out Designer is like, what the course is like, Katie's favorite modules, and her favorite parts of this community, and just what you can expect from the course from a student's perspective. If you're like, Elizabeth, I've heard you talk about this, but I want to hear someone else talk about it. Well, here is Katie to tell you all the things. And if you're listening to this live, then I want you to know Booked Out Designer is actually open for enrollment right now, which I'm recording this in advance, obviously, but even just thinking about you getting to hear this when it's open makes me so happy because I have been so eager and excited about welcoming new students in. So I'm so glad it's finally here. So it's open right now, but only through this Friday, which is July 16th. So you got to join before then. That's when the doors will be open and they'll be closing again until 2022. So if you feel like this is a good fit for you, then I want you to join me and join Katie in this awesome community and course. And while you're listening to this episode, I encourage you, pull up the info page about all of this, read it over, see what questions you have. Feel free to chat with me on the website. There's a little chat box there where you can ask questions. You can email me, send me a DM on Instagram, but I'd love to help you figure out if this is a good fit for you. So I'm linking to it in the show notes, but the link is elizabethmccravey.com/BOD, short for Booked Out Designer, and that'll give you all the info. And if you're listening to this way into the future, Booked Out Designer might be closed, but you can still get on the wait list at that same page. So anyway, I'm really excited about this. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Katie. And again, guys, check out Booked Out Designer while you're listening to this episode. And I hope to see you inside the course and community soon. Okay, guys, so I'm sitting here on Zoom with the lovely Katie Taylor, who is one of the founding members of Booked Out Designer and an awesome designer, an awesome marketer, an awesome mother. And I'm just so excited for this conversation and for everyone listening to be able to learn from you, Katie, and hear your business story because I think it's so inspiring. So welcome.
Thank you
to the podcast.
Thanks.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. Okay, so To start though, like go ahead and tell everyone who you are and what you do in your business.
Yeah, so I'm Katie Taylor and I live with my family. We're just north of Cincinnati. So it's me, my husband, my two kids who are 9 and 4. And then throw in the mix, we've got 2 cats and now a puppy. And
Nice.
so I primarily work with helping local service-based businesses to create a better brand through their website and their marketing.
Awesome. Okay, first of all, say how long you've been in business. And then I also want you to take everyone back to what you were doing right before you started your business and then kind of what starting your business looked like.
Okay. Yeah. So I launched my business, Abundant Collab Co., in 2019. So September of 2019. Prior to that, I had left my, I guess you could say like my career in the nonprofit world. So I was a 5K event director for a national nonprofit. And so I knew that that was not sustainable long term. It just wasn't a good fit, but I wasn't sure what was a good fit. And so I knew that in order to find something different, I kind of needed to get some things off of my plate to see what I might find instead. And so I had a brief season of being home with my kids. And while I was home with them, it was great. I remember it was kind of around the time of my husband and my anniversary. And we went out to dinner, and I can remember just kind of getting teary-eyed and just seeing like, this is exactly what I want right now. I want a little bit of a break. I want to be home with them. I'm really excited. And then kind of just as quickly, I was like, when the time came, I was like, and now I'm ready for something. I'm ready to do something other than be home full time with the kids. And so, I don't even have like a specific instance of like, so this is what I did and this is how it went. Just slowly started looking at opportunities. I came across the concept of freelancing, which feels so common now, like freelancing, right? Yeah. But before this, I had no idea like the world of freelancing or what it was. Yeah. And so I started looking at freelancing and learning about that, and then just kind of getting into this world of like online business ownership. And so I was like, virtual assistant or online business manager, or do I want to help businesses with their social media? Like, do I want to plan their content for them? And just kind of found this world. And so my first few like client work was actually helping local businesses with their social media. So helping them plan out their content, teaching them about the app and how to use it well. I pretty quickly decided I didn't want to be managing. Like, I was like, I do not. That's like one of the first things people ask. They're like, can you do our social media for us? I cannot. That is not. And so I think what that actually goes back to is I just didn't want to be on somebody else's like timetable, somebody else's schedule. And then kind of related to that was I did not want a job where my time was directly connected to my income. So it's like, if you're only making so much an hour, there's only so many hours in a day. And so I wanted something different than that. And so it was like, okay, what does that look like? So that's what I started with. And then kind of along that time, my mom and her husband had purchased some property, and they were getting ready to build and open a new wedding and event venue. And she and I met, and she asked how I could help her. And one of the things was helping her with her website. And so I took the StoryBrand course and absolutely loved it. And then in researching website options for her, that's how I discovered Showit. So previously I had no idea about the world of Showit and the designer community. And so that's like one of the first things I can remember for how it started in terms of website design and marketing.
I love all that. And I think like, so I see so much my own story and everything you just shared of like, one, not knowing that the online space exists. Like, it's like when you first enter it, it's like, oh, wait, this is like a thing. And then you're like, even though it's been there a while, it feels so new. And I think you probably know this, but I started out doing social media management as well, which is just like, yeah, it's a great like leg in. And I think so many people can relate to like you start the business doing one thing and you pretty quickly pivot, which you pivoted quickly to websites. And yeah, when you first find Showit or another software, even it's like, oh my gosh, like what the heck? This is so fun. Okay, question for you with all that though, like, as someone who you are self-taught then in design, would you say that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So how does that feel? Like, did you struggle with imposter syndrome starting your business, starting to say I'm like offering design services, or like, oh, how have you dealt with that? Because I think that's something like when people decide like, okay, I'm doing design. Now I know other people in Book.Designer like can relate to that as well. Like I know Tori's one who like she transitioned from like photography to websites. It's like, how do you handle all that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like I have like 50 answers all at once.
Yeah.
Just so many, because that's a really good question, I feel like, because it is so applicable to my journey. So, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this as we go, but yeah, I think I struggled. I know I was struggling big time with the confidence, coming into Showit and seeing that there were already designers and trying to figure out, their experience, surpassing my experience and kind of feeling like, that there wasn't a place for me, when there's already so much talent in the design world or in the Showit community specifically. And so I would say that I was still really facing that and trying to figure out how to handle that. Even coming into the Booked Out Designer course, I was still kind of promoting my services from a marketing perspective first. So I was trying to promote my skill set and how I can help businesses more from like marketing and strategy, because I was still kind of grappling with the idea that my design work could be, for lack of a better word, like good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can even relate to that as someone who was like trained in design. Making the transition, it can feel so scary. And I'm glad you stuck with it and your design work's awesome. So so that's really fun. Okay. I have a question that kind of goes off of that. I know you've shared with me that like you were like considering kind of quitting your business right before joining Booked Out Designer. And I like just found out from you this morning that like you only learned about it 24 hours before the doors open. And then you were one of the first people to buy it because it sold out really quickly in y'all's founding member launch. But like, tell me about that. You were considering quitting, like what was going on there? And then like what changed it?
Yeah. So it's funny now, but it's like starting a business is hard.
Yeah.
True. I'm sure people, when they hear that, they're going to be like, yes, but it's like, no, it's hard.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of trial and error. And I would say too, like in the online business space, you are just constantly bumping up against other people's business stories. And so that leaves room for a couple different things. It leaves room for inspiration and encouragement and ideas and collaboration, but it also leaves room for, you're constantly absorbing somebody else's like sales story or someone else's marketing or someone else's like dream and their journey. And so it leaves a lot of room for wondering like, am I doing this right? If I were doing it differently, would I be seeing different results? Am I missing something? Like, and all of those types of questions. And so prior to like literally a few days before I came across Booked Out Designer, I was just I had just finished a couple projects and I was just sort of like debriefing with my husband. We both tend to be, in this sense, like pretty analytically minded. And, I was just like, I love the idea of having my business and I don't want to give up on that vision and what that looks like for us and our family and for me and the benefits that can come from that. But this is not the way I envisioned that looking like. I was just there's just some situations that I had come up against with like client work, and it like not really to anybody's fault, but like I launched a client's website and she accidentally crashed it like 2 days later.
Oh, yeah, that's rough.
And I'm like, and now it's so easy, you're like, okay, that stuff does happen. But in my mind, I was like, what can I be doing differently? Or, is working with clients always going to be like this? Just kind of some of the demands. And I don't mean that like demands from clients, but just the demand and the accessibility. And like, I was wondering, can I set us up differently to have a different experience, to, avoid some of the hiccups? But then I was like, well, maybe this is just the way business is. Like, you can't only do fun things. So like, maybe there's like the trade-off is like, this is stressful, but in return, I get to be my own boss. And so I just had a conversation with my husband, and I was like, I just hate the idea of coming this far and not continuing. But I just remember saying, and I don't even remember necessarily the facts, but I remember the feeling. And I said, like, I didn't start a business to feel the way I'm feeling right now. And so if that's the case, what do I do from here? And so I started kind of brainstorming some ideas. I had considered like reaching out and doing maybe like a mentorship with another designer. I had started kind of trying to come up with a list of things that I thought could help moving forward, but you don't know what you don't know. And so that's sort of where I was before I came to Book It Out Designer. And yeah, you asked, like, I came across it 24 hours before. So I think you and I had chatted about this. So I first came across, your business like February 2020, when you were on James Wedmore's podcast. Yes. And so I didn't really know you or anything really about you, but there were just a couple things during your interview with him that really stuck out to me and I kind of held on to. And I think what must have happened is I must have subscribed to your podcast.
Yeah.
But like, just because it makes the story kind of crazier, I had never listened to it. And so here I am, like February of this year. So February 2021, I'm like questioning, like, okay, where are we going here? What am I doing? And so I'm like, let's like find a podcast, that's sort of like and oh gosh, I wish I could remember what episode it was. And it was an episode of your podcast. And so it was obviously in preparation for you opening the doors. And so you said a couple things about the course in that episode. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to make some decisions about my business based on, the information that I take from this course. And we'll see what happens from there.
I love that. Okay. I do remember you telling me that you had found me through James originally, which it's so funny because I think you probably heard me say this, but like right after that interview with him, he and I were just chatting and he was like, you need to do a course for designers on running a design business. And I was like, I've actually been wanting to do that for a long time, but I keep like putting it off. And here's why. And he was like, no, that needs to be your next thing.
Oh my gosh,
and
no,
so we
I
like talked about it.
That.
Yeah. So it was like after that interview was when I was like, okay, I really am going to like make this the next thing I'm working on. But yeah, that's so fun. And I love that it worked out that way, that like we found each other through the podcast you're subscribed to and not listening to yet, which is so fun. And like, yeah, I think again, like so much of your story people can relate to, of like, we can get to a point in our business where it's like, I need something to change in order to keep going. And you, first of all, I think you know this too. I keep saying that to you this whole interview, but you and I have the same Enneagram and Myers-Briggs. I noticed that from your website, which I feel like the way we both think is so similar because of that. But like, you're like, yes, this thing needs to change in order for this to keep. I'm like, yes, I like totally get that mindset. But then like, it's so crazy because, okay, so that would have been February of 2021, the kind of the end of February that you joined the course. But then since then you've booked a website project, your highest paying one yet at $6,000, which is like, that's so fast. Like so many people listening are like, oh my gosh, I would love to book a website project for $6,000. Like that's amazing. And so I love that, like how quickly you've gotten to that point. And I'd love, I know the pricing module was something that played a role in that. And then I would love for you to tell people about that and about the experience on the call with that client when you booked them and all of that stuff. Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravy.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravy.com/CHM. Now back to the episode.
Yeah. So it's funny that you mentioned the pricing, because one of the things that you said on James's podcast that stuck out to me was, I think you were talking about it from the perspective of switching from one-to-one work to starting templates. And you had mentioned that your one-on-one work, like your custom websites, were getting to a price point that a lot of people couldn't afford. So that was not even the point of what you were talking about. You were talking about how you got into templates. And what stuck out to me is I was like, this person, Elizabeth, whoever she is charging, whatever you said, 8, 10, I don't even remember what you said. I think it was somewhere, the number that sticks in my head was $8,000. And I remember thinking okay, there is a world in which I can run a design business and charge thousands of dollars for a website. And I just sort of put that in my pocket. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but that's what I'm going to work towards. And so I had previously to the course booked a couple clients actually for websites around $5,000. The difference was they were a lot of work. The websites were pretty intensive compared to this $6,000 website. And I felt nervous. It wasn't that I didn't think they were going to get a great website. I didn't doubt that. I was like, they will get a website that serves them what they need. But I was nervous on the back end of the experience that I was providing them for when they chose to invest that kind of money in a website, knowing that somebody else would have offered the same, quote unquote, package for less. And so that nervousness and lack of confidence, I think, translates into everything you do. It's this feeling of I don't want to let them down versus yep, I feel really good about what you've paid me and this is going to be a great experience. And so I would say that's sort of been the pivot from the $5,000 website before the course to this $6,000 website. Not to mention this website it's actually a smaller website project, fewer pages, not a lot of integrations. And they thought it was going to cost them $8,000. So the mindset shift and the confidence that I feel like I've got working for me now, I think is making all of the difference.
Yeah, it was cool when you shared that about them seeing your lookbook, which is your way of saying, here's all the things I do, which is something that is in Booked Out Designer of creating a lookbook, and then thinking it should be more, which, yeah, I'm excited for you with that. And then like this relates to that, but you shared with me that you reduced your project quote time by 50% thanks to the systems and processes that you've been able to implement now. And I know like you were saying earlier, even that like client experience was something that was like worrisome to you because you're like, you don't want to spend a gazillion hours on every project and feel like you don't have time with your family and other things. So tell me about that, of like reducing that time and all of that stuff.
Yeah. So the three things that stuck out to me when I decided while listening to your podcast, I remember I was in the bathroom doing my makeup, getting ready for the day, was you said you didn't do client projects through email. And I was like, this is my person. Because during kind of that period when my husband and I were debriefing, he was like, you have got to get your clients out of your inbox. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. How do you do that? That was just another one of those things where you're like, you don't know what you don't know. And I just did not know how to make that happen. I just didn't know about, the different softwares that were available. You just don't know. And so that was one. He was like, you got to get them out of your inbox. I'm like, great. Okay. How? And then, so that was a big thing. And then you said, you didn't believe that you needed to have like 1 million touch points and nonstop communication with your clients to have a great experience. And that felt really affirming because that felt like the direction I was trying to grow my business. But you don't know if you're a crazy person with these ideas. And so to hear somebody who is, successful and growing a thriving business say that, it was like, okay, check. But again, but how do I make that happen? Because you can only try so many things with each project. You need a project or you need a client, and then you learn through it and you grow through it. But that's stressful. And then you said that we would get to see client calls. I was like, I'm in. Those were the three things. Those are the three things that I was like, worth the price. And I do believe like now on the other side of it, that like still worth the price. Yeah. So because of really, I think those things really played a part. So setting up a new project management system that I just feel like I have a huge crush on my project management system.
You do. You've shared so much of like, I've got this set up in the group. I'm like, yes. Like there's been quite a few of you who are like really into it. Yeah, I'm glad. Yes.
And I think even more than just like having a project management system, because like if you have things and they don't work, like it doesn't matter. But what's nice is, for example, I just had somebody reach out to me a couple days ago and want to work together. And instead of, and I don't know, this could have just been me, but early on, the need to feel like you have to come up with this like custom solution for them. Especially this wasn't web design. This is more marketing related, but I love doing it. And it's like helping them clarify their marketing message before they launch a new company. And so instead of being like, oh, we could do this, or I wonder if we could do this, I was like, we're going to run it through the process that I have set up. And so it was easy because it was like, here's what I can offer you. Here's what that would look like. Does this sound, and so does this sound good to you? And so it did not require, a ton of brain work on my part. I was able to continue with my day. I didn't have to stop, and come up with an idea and then type up everything new to go along with this service. And so they reached out to me, and then like within 24 hours, they had booked and paid. And so awesome. All of that, reduced like the brain work that, the brain time and the energy. I think you talk about this a lot in the course, and I am like behind you with my like fan sign, like, yay, 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 is the amount of time we can spend and waste, whether it's as a designer or any type of business owner, thinking, what do I need to do here? What do I need to do here? What does this process involve? And so being able to set up the processes, I think I'm so vocal about how setting up the back end of my business is benefiting it on the front end. And so getting to kind of watch those three pieces play out together, how to use the project management system, and then seeing like real examples and not having to like, again, come up with that from scratch. So I think that it was really beneficial. And now I've got like documents everywhere in there. I'm like tracking my like social media numbers in there, and I've got all kinds of things in there. But then watching and seeing like those client calls and seeing how you handled them and kind of putting all of that together in some weird wrap the question back around way, has significantly reduced project timelines because they just go through a workflow.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I'm with you. Everything you just said is so awesome. And yeah, I mean, and what we're talking about too is like, and what to kind of like say more of what you were just saying, like when we can so often want to make everyone have like a custom experience because we're calling it custom design work.
Right.
But then it's like you forget steps and it doesn't all need to live in your brain. And it's great to use templates and systems that you're just taking clients through one after the other. And then they are getting a custom experience even within that. But it's not like all custom living in your brain that you have to remember everything for. So yeah, I love hearing that. And I want to ask you too, because you were just talking about the client calls module and really the client experience module. And I know we've talked about the pricing module, but what would you say are like your favorite elements of the course itself and then also like the whole experience?
Yeah. So I'm definitely a big fan and had a lot of like aha moments and wins from those specific modules. So the client experience, the pricing model, the calls. Yeah. But I was also thinking about, so after the course, when you were asking for feedback, I went back to the beginning. So I have almost an entire college ruled notebook, like full of notes from the course. And so I went back and I was looking at the vision casting exercise that you had us do in the beginning. And so I was just like blown away. I had forgotten kind of what I had written. And so I do think, the questions that you asked us in the beginning about money were really important. That's something that has stuck with me. And sometimes I'll just be out running errands and I'll have a thought and I'll be like, yep, that's part of like my money story. And so I think that those questions were also helpful. I think I know everyone says this, and so I'm not saying anything new. But you just like can't separate like your business from your mindset, from like your emotional well-being. Like it all connects together. And so for me and my journey, like money mindset has been a huge thing to work through. Yeah. And the course, even though you're not like, you're not doing mindset coaching with us, you bring in mindset coaching and you talk about it from your own experience. There's just a lot of information shared in the course to really, I think, provide such validation to the students as designers about what you are doing and how you are serving people, and then setting you up to do it well, I think is just kind of an overarching theme throughout the course.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. And the mindset stuff is so important and it is foundational. And I'm glad you love that first video. It's not the first one. It's like the third video. So for people who end up taking it, it's in module 0. And it helps you like frame out what your goals are for your business, where you want your life to be, and then how to like show up that way and all kinds of stuff there. So I love that. And then, okay, so I know too, for you, the Facebook community and coaching calls have been really impactful. Tell people about that and like how that has been helpful to you and all the takeaways and whatnot.
Okay, I will try my very best. So the Facebook group, I mean, I know I shared this a little bit with you, but so like say, if you're working one-on-one with a coach, like you get to bring your business to the table and then you get to talk about your business and then whatever feedback your coach can give you. But when you're inside the Facebook group with all of the students, you're getting to like simultaneously experience, for us, there were like 35 of us or whatever. So like up close and personal, following along, and the wins, the learns, the questions with like 35 other businesses at one time. So I think, one of the big benefits when I signed up for the course was I knew that for, say in my mind, I was like, okay, 12 weeks to go through the course. I don't actually remember where that number came from, but if it's 12 weeks to go through the course, how much can I learn on my own in 12 weeks? without knowing necessarily like, what am I looking for and where do I go to find it? And so for me, that was a big selling point was I can try to find this information on my own, but it's going to take me longer than 12 weeks. And I'm going to have to take my time through each client project to like test these learnings out.
Yeah.
So with the course and the Facebook group, like I am watching 35 people try things in their business every day. And even just one of the like small, like daily posts about sharing your favorite, I remember this. I can't remember who it was, but like exactly, but it was just share your favorite like Chrome browser extensions. Oh, yeah. And someone shared one and I was like, you just cut down like one of the steps in my design project. I am not kidding, by probably like 2 hours.
Yes.
And so
I felt the same way about that post, by the way. There were like some people, like I shared a post where it was like, share your favorite Chrome extensions, and that everyone was commenting. And there were some where I was like, oh my gosh, I needed that extension. I did not know about that. So that's awesome.
You're like, you don't know what you don't know. You know, you've got your processes and you think you're doing it, you know, in a way that makes sense or the best way. And so that's how I feel like the Facebook group was like all the time. So same with the coaching calls. If everybody comes to the call with a question, you know, and they ask their question, so you're getting to not only bring your question to the call, but we were also getting to listen in to the conversation that they were having with you, hear your feedback, while also chatting together in the chat with like ideas and like, oh, when that happened to me, like, here's how it went, or, you know, don't do this. And so also it was like really validating and exciting to kind of see like so many different business models, I think too, because I know I mentioned this, like as a designer, I just sort of felt like I was a little bit on an island. Like, I don't know, is this the way to do it? I don't know. Is this how other people are doing it? I don't know. Like, you don't know. And you don't have like a coworker next to you to be like, hey, what's the best like process for doing this? And so suddenly you're in this community with people and they're saying something without even a second thought. And you're like, whoa, you just changed things for me big time. I didn't even know that was, you know, a possibility, or that makes so much sense. Or on the other hand, you're like, good to know, we'll avoid that route, or that doesn't work the way I thought it would. You know, I know we talked a lot, I think a couple times in the group, the calls, like about directions for growing your business. You know, do you grow it with a course? Do you grow it with templates? And so even those conversations in vision casting for our own businesses are just helpful to see how those journeys can play out. You know, we had people say like, hey, I tried this. It didn't work the way I thought it would. And then there are other people in the group who are like, oh, I was thinking about that. Good to know. And then other people trying things and they're like, this went really well. You know, I know we had people like switching like over to show it like in the middle of the course. And so I'm so crazy about the Facebook group, truly. And then, and just like the opportunities in there. So, you know, the people doing, you know, different people doing coffee chats together. I know Ida talked about that with you. Like coordinating to see one another at the Show It conference later this year was really fun. And then this is off topic, but it's really fun and I wanted to share it because it goes along with like the community that you find in there in the course. And so prior to the Booked Out Designer course, I was not offering like visual branding. So that was not part of what I was offering. I thought, you know, a lot of my businesses are not really looking for a new logo. And I remember being on these long discovery calls. So that's another shout out. I loved the discovery call, all of the knowledge you shared with us for running those discovery calls.
Yay.
And I just remember thinking like, oh my gosh, these discovery calls are so long. I could not even possibly imagine trying to cover design work. And then seeing through like the discovery call module and the client experience, like how to mush all those things together, I was like, oh, this is so doable. Again, like I had just never seen it this way. And so I was like, I really like design work. And I think the Facebook group is really validating. I do not at all think that I am, you know, the best designer in the group. Like there is a lot of talent in there. And yet I still feel like the group is just a really validating place for the different types of talent that are in there. just different design styles, different the way they go about creating. So instead of, like I said before, like that comparison of not feeling good enough, here I am in this group with other people that I feel are like really talented. And somehow I'm feeling better about myself too in the process.
That's awesome.
And so one of the students does website, but said like, I don't want to do the brand work, and just started collecting interest from members in the group. And so she and I had a call, and we've partnered up together. And so now when she has a website client who would also like visual branding, she will just outsource it to me, and I will return the finished product back to her and her client. And I would have said, like, I would have quoted and said, like, I'm just not good enough at like the logo design, so I'm not going to offer it. We set up that partnership, which I'm super excited about. And then I'm already like working on like a brand design package for somebody. And I'm like, I was going to offer this like 3-month marketing mentorship program for like $2,000. And instead I am doing like a brand package for like $1,200. And that takes me, just a couple weeks.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. And I love the partnership stuff. I love everything you're saying about the Facebook community and the coaching calls. Like, it's so great. And you're right, that community is awesome, and like so much friendship happening, so many job opportunities, like the one you're even saying right now of like partnering with each other, but even people sharing, like, I have this potential client who I'm not going to work with for whatever reason, and like who would want to be referred. I love that. And yeah, let's talk about that real quick of like, I know which we've kind of alluded to this whole conversation, but you changed your niche and your offers, and you're kind of in the process of bringing some of that live with your new website, like right now as we're recording this.
Yes.
So like what is the change? And then how did what you learned in Booked.Designer contribute to like you making those pivots?
Yeah, I'm really excited. So, so I said, like, before the course, I was like, can this business exist the way I think it can? And I had always envisioned serving clients in like with more than one service. So in my mind, it was going to look like this. It was going to look like they needed marketing help with social media. And then when they need a website, they will think of me. So that's like the hierarchy I was trying to support. And it wasn't working the way I was envisioning, along with, a myriad of other questions. Like, is this the right client? Is this even a need? Mm-hmm. And so, on the other side of the course, I have rearranged that. And I am now primarily promoting myself as a website designer who also comes at it from a really strategic marketing perspective. And then oddly, still get a lead for someone who's like, we just need help with the marketing, like the message. Yeah. So it's like how quickly just rearranging that, I go from a place of like, maybe this just isn't possible, to being like, try it like this. And I will tell you in full honesty, the reason I did not want to put website designer first is kind of going back to that imposter syndrome and that lacking confidence. I just didn't think I was ready to promote myself as a website designer. So I've kind of reshifted that, and I'm promoting as like website designer first. And I still have the vision of like working with clients more than once. Like, I really love that idea. I love the idea of like serving them in one way and then helping them in another way, and the relationship. So, that's where I kind of like go into my like marketing mind, where it's like attract, connect, convert, retain, and refer. And so, so does that answer your question? I get so like excited. And then I did too want to say, like, so I'm while we're recording, I'm like so close to my new website being done. So it'll be done when this episode airs. And honestly, like, no one else will know this, but when I look at that website, I will see like the difference in my before website and my after website is my confidence, the confidence in what I have to deliver as a designer and, a marketing strategist to businesses.
I love that. Yeah. And I love the new website because you let me see a little preview of it. And I was looking at it last night and this morning, and it's looking awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. And okay, another thing. Yeah. So you have shared that you surpassed 2020 revenue already, but with fewer clients this year. And that was a goal of yours of like being able to work with less clients, but make more money. Talk about that and like what elements of the course helped with that and all that, like that awesome accomplishment.
Yeah. So since 2019, so, you know, I'm approaching 2 years. That has just been like kind of my goal is like increasing the revenue, but decreasing the amount of people it takes to get there. And so, you know, my very first client, I was like, do you think they'll pay me $25 an hour? And then I was like, my next client, I was like, I'm going to say 30 an hour, but if they say that's too much, like, we'll just negotiate it down. Like, And so I remember getting to the point at the start of this year where I was like, I'm making in an hour. Like I charge like my hourly fee it used to take me a day's worth of work at my job. And then that's sort of where, you know, the confidence, I was like, oh my gosh, can I do that? I don't know. Like that's a lot of money. I don't know. I don't know if I can charge that much. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know. But I do know. I do know that I can do that. And so Booked Out Designer came at a good time because I really believe that my journey in increasing my prices and working with fewer clients and attracting quality clients that I really like working with comes back to like really good education choices, you know, and investing in the right things. And so, you know, at the beginning of this year, it was like, I'm to this point, but I'm kind of panicking. So let's make a good decision. Let's make a good investment to help resolve these feelings and these, you know, kind of like bumps, because there's always bumps along the way, so that I can hopefully keep going. I think I still believed it was possible. And I think that's what led me to invest and purchase your course. And I think it was an excellent decision. I have obviously zero doubts about it, but really like kind of whether, you know, in this case, it's your course. And obviously I'm, you know, a huge fan, is making good investments in like ongoing education has been a priority of mine. And I really think that has helped me be able to charge more and be a little bit more in control of who I choose to work with, because my priorities aren't so much about getting the most money the quickest. It's more about the lifestyle and the choices that I have as a result of the business I'm building. And so I want to work with people who I enjoy the process. It doesn't mean there's not stress or frustrations. And I want to build it in a way that does not require crazy amounts of stress or hours. And so you have to be kind of strategic in doing that. And so I think, you know, I was kind of teetering on this vision of like, I think it's possible, but I'm just not sure. And that's when I enrolled in Booked Out Designer. And I was like, okay, yeah, it is totally possible. And here's what I need to do to make that happen.
I love that. And you're so good at the vision aspect of your business. Like I can tell you have a lot of that visionary in you. Like, you know what you're working towards so clearly, which is so important. I love that. And okay, so back, like thinking about like, and I know you've shared this in your case study video. Yeah. You've shared this in like so much in the various places that you've shared wins you've had, but like, what would you say to someone who is like right now the doors are open at the time that this will be airing, like someone who's thinking about joining the course, but maybe they're on the fence, or maybe they're not sure if it will really help their business? Like what kind of like would you advise them on?
Yeah. So I'm thinking that like I try to think about what I would be thinking if I were looking at making this investment. And so coming from a place of probably either somebody who's like newer in their business, maybe kind of a couple years in like I was, or even somebody who's more established. And I know that we had all three of those within the course. And I know that everybody walked away with wins. So hopefully I can help people who maybe are questioning if it sounds too good to be true, or is it worth the money, or am I going to get in there and it's not going to be what I was expecting. You know, I know there's a lot of, you know, especially in the online world, there's lots of online offers and lots of courses and lots of marketing language used around them. And we know that there's the value of talking about the benefits of a program rather than like the features, right? Like instead of listing out everything they get, they want to know what's going to be on the other side. But then the flip side of that is sometimes like that message is a little too fluffy. I feel like, you get in there and you're like, okay, not quite sure I'm going to get to that, to the other side of this the way I thought I would based on what's here. And so I would say that in business, you can only work faster for so long before you have to start working smarter. And so whether you are early on and this information is going to save you from a lot of headaches and frustration. And like, I just remember hearing horror stories and being like, must avoid the horror stories in my own life. But how do I do that? Right? Like, it's always like people, their story is they come back from like, exhaustion or overworked or, these terrible experiences. And now they have this like solution. And I was like, okay, I just don't want to ever get to that point. Like, how do I succeed without having like this horror story for myself? So your course early on, for those early on is, I think, really going to help them build a foundational business that's not just immediately gratifying, but is paying them off for time to come. And then obviously I have talked quite a bit about my experience kind of being a couple years in. And then, if you're even more, if you're several years in, just the ability, I think the course is set up in such a way that it's going to help you scale your business no matter where you are in your business. And so, this investment, while, it is an investment, but you'll never outgrow the investment, in my opinion. So there is no way to be like, to think that like you won't get your investment back, because the course and the education in the course and the relationships and the networking and the confidence and all the business coaching that's happening that far surpasses like a price tag for the course. So obviously I'm a fan, but also like I'm really honest about things that aren't great. So I would not, like, I just don't think my personality, I wouldn't be doing an interview about a course or an experience if I really didn't genuinely stand behind it. And so hopefully, it would make me so happy if someone's like, okay, I feel good about it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be like, yeah, you are. You absolutely are.
I love that. And I'm with you on like, I would also not go promote something that I don't believe in. For people listening, if anyone does join after this interview, when you come introduce yourself in the Facebook group, tag Katie and tell her that you heard her interview. Cause that'll be so fun.
It really would. Seriously. I'm just like, it's so corny, like better together. It's so true. And like, we just, I don't know, we put so much pressure on ourselves as business owners, or, somebody gets a break before we do, or, and there's just so many things I think in business or with women, and that they're barriers that push between us and give us reason to kind of separate and break down the community or the vulnerability with one another when we're all freaking working so hard for some version of the same thing. And so, yes, I am like, anytime there's an opportunity to like remove those barriers and be better together. And in this case, I think that this course and this community and your education and leadership is one of those opportunities.
Oh, thanks, Katie.
You're welcome.
I love that. And I'm so grateful that you found through the podcast and everything.
I know. This story, I'm like, it's a pretty good story. It's just that's just how it goes, right?
Yeah. And I love your business story too. And all the things you're accomplishing. I can't wait to see where all you head. Before we get into rapid fire questions, I do have a few fun ones for you. But do you have anything else that like we didn't talk about that you think we need to add in?
Oh my gosh. That is a tricky question. Because I'm like, what does everybody want to hear about next? Like, what do I need to tell you? I want people to feel encouraged and excited. And I want them to feel like there's so much potential. And, feel like there's just so many stories of like quick success, and you're like, why not me? It's like, oh gosh, for every quick success story, there's like countless other stories who are just, one day at a time. So I would feel, I don't know, like I'm a normal person. I don't have, and I'm doing it. And we're, I kind of feel like that's where we all are. Like we're all doing it. And so that's just sort of my shout out, I think, to the creative community, the designer, the, business community is like, we're all just doing it and we're doing great. Yeah.
I love that. Yes. Okay. Well, let's do these rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And so the first one, best motherhood business owner tip, because you do have 2 kids. What we're saying, they're 4 and 9.
Yes.
And you're also a wife and you have other things you're doing and you're working on reducing your hours of your business, making more money. What are like some things that have helped you manage your business and personal life well together as a mom?
Yeah. So I really think it's not like a direct business thing, but I really think getting clear on like the values that you have around like your family and your business. So I know there was a season where I was like, oh, the work from home mom gig needs to look like this, and in this case, it was like, I need to love like having the kids around and they pop in and out of my office, and then it was like, now I'm to a point where I'm like, that actually doesn't serve me well. And so making decisions that align with what feels good or what we can do. So, one of the first things I outsourced wasn't like my social media or my graphics. It was like someone to clean my house because I'm at home a lot. And in order to focus on my business, I need to not walk past 20 things that I want to do around the house because this is my time to work. And so I guess I would say my best mom business hack is like, there is no right or wrong decision, but what works for someone else and what works for you may not be the same. And so the longer you try to fit into someone else's mold of what you think it's going to look like, I think the harder it's going to be. And so I had to say like, okay, so the mom whose kids are able to come in and out of her office in her house, she's not picking it up every day. Like neither one of us is better or more successful than the other. We just need different support systems in place to do what we want to do. So that's what I would say. My mom hack is do what works for you and don't worry about or feel badly if it doesn't align with maybe the way you thought it would look. And then also know that it can change.
Yeah, I feel like I need to hear that as I roll into motherhood. Yeah, that's a great tip. And I love that you outsourced house cleaning because that's something where, you're like, yes, of course. Yeah, because it's like, that's something too, where so often we feel like we can't outsource that, or you feel like you need to pick outsourcing like childcare first, which you might do that as well. But it's like, you can also outsource the thing that's making you not be able to hang out with your kids, which would be like spending too much time on housework.
Yeah.
So,
And then, unfortunately, my 4 and 9-year-old don't really appreciate the effort that it takes for me to clean the house. And so then when it's messy again, how I'm feeling frustrated. And so how can I set myself up to have quality time with my kids? Well, someone else can clean my house a lot quicker than I can. And also it removes that frustration of I just cleaned that up.
I bet. Yeah, that's a great tip. What's your best design hack for fellow designers? Any, it can be literally anything, just something or software you use in your business, whatever.
Okay. I think my best design hack that I have learned from my experience so far is really owning your experience as a designer. And what I mean by that is, I used to want to give my clients 6 different design boards, right? Because it's or when I would create the flow of their website page, I would go paragraph by paragraph. I'm going to put this here and I'm going to put this here. And does that sound okay to you? And now my design hack is trusting myself to be the authority. And instead of kind of going into it as a brainstorming collaboration, I almost go into it more as a presentation of the decisions I've made, and then see if there's any feedback, because more times than not, they're just so happy to have somebody do this for them. And if they, and so they don't want a lot of questions. And then also like from a design perspective, like that just slows the process down because they're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, I don't know. Well, what about this?
Yeah.
So if you can kind of just like keep that door closed and just continue to move them along, I think that one, it's like, it helps you because you're not like, oh, they hated, it's like, no, they like it and they're ready to move forward. And so it takes less time and they think you're amazing. And so that I think that would be I don't even know what to call that hack. It's just like, don't open that door.
Yeah. I mean, though, that's such a good tip that people need to hear of like, they're hiring you to be the expert, not to be the person asking them to give their opinion on 1,000 things that they don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Like,
and trying
you're
to
right, slow stuff down
on it just takes a lot of time. So it's like, again, kind of coming back to like how you price and who you attract and what you say you're going to provide for them. Like they're trusting you. And they've already made the decision to trust you. So you don't need to necessarily educate them on every step of the process.
Yeah, I love that tip. And that's definitely how I like to run projects too. So that's awesome. Favorite business book or another type of book if you don't have a business one you want to share?
Yeah. Okay. I have one that I read this year that I have been recommending to others. And I think just because, me, you, and probably a lot of your listeners, like work, business, and life all kind of like cross over pretty frequently together. And so I don't know, have you heard of The Lazy Genius?
Yes, I heard her on a podcast the other day. Okay. So I haven't read the book, but I'm familiar with it from her podcast.
Okay.
Or the episode with her on it.
Yeah. So she's another one who I came across her podcast years ago. And I swear the episode was like The Lazy Genius Way to Fix Your Hair. And I was like, what is this podcast? And I was like, no. Like, I don't know what kind of nonsense that is going to be. And so, years later, I've circled back around and now I am like a huge fan. I'm like, everything she says is so helpful. So The Lazy Genius Way by Kendra Adachi. And yes, and she has a podcast too. So the book is based around 13 principles to help you lazy genius your way through life. And I think that it can apply in business too, because it's deciding what matters and doing those things well, and then not focusing on the other things. And so there's these principles that you can use and apply to so many different like situations, like the type of gift you get for your child's teacher, to how you clean your house, to what you keep and get rid of. But it's done in such a way that it's just like, you'll be cooking dinner one night and you'll be like, oh, right. Like, here's an opportunity where I can use one of those principles. So you don't have to like rearrange your life or like, come up with a new like morning ritual in order to then apply these principles. You just kind of start throwing them into your life as you're doing them. Yeah. And she's really funny too. And so it's just another one of those people that makes you feel like, we are in this together. So I really like the book, love the podcast. So that's my book recommendation.
Okay, I'm definitely going to read that because I was thinking I wanted to read it after I heard her in an interview, but now I'm like, okay, I definitely want to read that.
It's crazy because awesome. You read it and then she'll be in her Instagram stories, talking about principle number 7. And you're like, even though I've read the book, I'm taking in everything you're saying because they just apply. It's principle number 7. In the winter, we were applying it to Christmas. Now we're applying it to the day at the pool. And so it's another one that kind of goes and grows with you. And so maybe something doesn't resonate the first time, but in a few months from now, you're like, yeah, I really need that concept.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's a great rec. Okay. Thank you, Katie. I mean, I've loved this conversation. I feel like I could ask you 1,000 other questions. Tell everyone where they can find you if they want to work with you, if they want to check out what you're doing, your resources, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So like we mentioned, I've been creating an entirely new website. It will have launched. So we'll be kind of celebrating that launch when this episode airs. And so it's katiemtaylor.co. And you can see the services that I'm offering. There's a brand new great resource page. There's free education in there for Instagram and marketing. There's a free training video. Then there's a couple other educational options for people. And then, so that'll be launching. And then you can see I'm going to be getting ready Elizabeth, I'm going to be getting ready to launch a podcast in the fall.
I love that.
I have some really fun ideas for preparing for that launch. I have not told like my people this yet. So, ta-da. Yeah. So the Creative Analyst podcast, I'm planning to launch it this fall. And I'm thinking about putting together like a fun, like, launch team or something around that. So I will put more details about that and coming soon, and like a sign up page where they can get notified. I will be looking for guests to have on the show. And so they can go to katiemtaylor.co for all of that information. And then I'm on Instagram all the time at Abundant Collab Co.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm so excited for your podcast. That's fun hearing the name of it too.
Thank you.
We'll have to talk more about that. It's cool because there are at least 3 of you, if not more than that, from the founding member group who are launching podcasts or who have already launched podcasts, which is really cool. Like that y'all have, in learning the marketing stuff in the course, chose that method because I think it's such a good one.
And like good podcasts too.
Yeah.
Like the ones that have already launched, they're like good. And you think like, you're like, everybody has a podcast. But then I was like, I live in a really big city and I think I only know 2 people in the whole city with a podcast. So you have to, again, break it down to like, not everybody else, but like your circle and your business. So I'm excited and nervous.
Yeah.
So I've got a few months to work on that.
Yes. I think you bought the same mic as me, right? Do you have the same podcast mic?
No,
was it Audio Technica?
No, my husband bought this for me for Christmas before I was even, I was like, the whole idea just terrified me. And he got this for me for Christmas. And this is my first time using it.
Oh, I love that. I love that you're getting to use it here. Yeah. That's such a sweet gift for him to get you ahead of the game there. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm excited for your podcast, and we'll link to all the stuff you said in the show notes so people can just click over to it. But seriously, thank you, Katie, for sharing your experience and your story and all of that. It's been fun chatting. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast today and for staying until the end. I appreciate you being here. And if you enjoyed this episode, then I want to invite you to check out my online course and coaching program for designers, Booked Out Designer. In this program, I teach you how to build a successful in-demand booked out business as a designer. You'll learn everything from the exact experience I take my clients through to things like figuring out your niche, mastering discovery calls, pricing your services for profit, creating contracts that will not cause you legal troubles, and my exact social media strategies to book clients. You even get to watch recordings of me in actual meetings with my actual clients so you can really learn through what you're seeing. We take things you're learning on this podcast and so many topics I never even cover on this show and deep dive into them. So in addition to the amazing course, the course is 9 modules of teaching with over 90 lessons. You get group coaching calls with me and access to an exclusive Facebook community of designers just like you. And fun fact, this isn't one of those kind of Facebook groups where the founder never comments on posts or you never see them in there. You'll find me there all the time, ready to help you out with any business question you have. So to get info on the course and to see when the doors will be opening again, head to elizabethmccravy.com/BOD, short for Booked Out Designer. I hope to be able to coach you and teach you inside of the course soon. And don't forget that you can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening so that you never miss an episode. And a great way to support the show is to leave a rating and review, share it with a friend, share it on social media. All of that will help get the word out. All right, I'll see you again next week.